This week on Filmed in Utah, I'm talking to Raven and Jen at McGrew Studios, and I'm meeting the cast of Diabalow's Crow. It's all coming up on Filmed in Utah. This place feels more welcoming, I think.
We hosted a big Harry Potter party here once that was thrown by professionals in the interior design business who came in, saw the shop. We gave them the tour. When we brought them out here, they thought it looked like, is it Diagon Alley? And they just were falling all over themselves. So we hosted this party where they probably bought over $600 worth of candy, and they set it all up on tables, and they were in apothecary jars, the kind of things that you would see in the film.
Nice.
And what they did is they bought out the entire theater over at the Megaplex over at the Gateway, and everybody loaded up on candy over here, and it was kind of a meet and greet. And then we all went over to see the Harry Potter movie, the last one that came out. It was great. So we've hosted many things from just basic clients and costume parties to important political clients to
well, I could totally see Gary Herbert, you know, the governor of Utah, dressed in one of your mini costumes.
I can't wait.
Well, let's talk about the studio. First off, how long has it been around, and who are your main clientele?
How long has it been around? I've had a studio on this block now for about 9 years. We've had this space that you're looking at now, or that you'll take pictures of, for going on about 4.5 to 5 years. Before we moved into this storefront down here in this ground level area, the studio was in a loft upstairs, and you really had to know, you had to be very self-selected to know who you were looking for or what kind of product you were looking for. If you were somebody who is in the theater business or entertainment business, and that's a pretty small circle, you would know how to find me. But you asked the second question, clients. Okay, so we have some famous brand names here at the studio, one of which, the most well-known, is probably the Salt Lake Tight Lacer label. Now, this is a label that we sew on everything that has to do with lacing or corseting. We build real corsets here, and it was kind of a fluke thing that I started about 10 years ago, having made them for many, many years in things like ballet, opera, theater. I decided to put the shingle out, and people started coming out of the woodwork because, as you know, corsets have been on everyone's minds, and increasingly so in the last decade or so. What's old is new.
Well, see, yeah, I kind of need a corset myself. You know, I used to have an hourglass figure.
Yeah.
Now it's more like a barrel figure.
Well, but obviously you've seen them everywhere. If you watch films like Sherlock Holmes, Moulin Rouge, you can't go anywhere now without seeing a corset. But people love them as really beautiful tailored garments. They're incredible. They're fun to make, and so that's a famous brand. A lot of our clientele were the corset clients. A lot of theaters, individual groups, people that needed custom wardrobe and custom tailoring. Big thing we're doing now that is really growing are weddings, custom and theme weddings. So fantasy weddings, fairy tale weddings that are done right and done well, so it doesn't look like you just went and bought a $50 made in China costume, but really beautiful, impeccably tailored. Oh, and mascots. So we do a whole service where we provide mascots for businesses who need them. And we do a lot of consulting on things such as, you could imagine this, does your mascot need to have a human face or not? Mm-hmm. What does he have to do? Under what conditions? Is he handing things out? Is he hugging children? Is he throwing children? Right? So we do a lot of that where we have to do concept realization. We work with the clients pretty typically, and they'll either come up with a design or we will, depends on if it's a corporate client or another small business, and those are always really fun. Clients range from reenactors to the goths to the furries to the steampunkers to the corset clients to the people reenacting their genealogy, private companies like theater companies, commercials, film, photography, burlesque dancers. I wonder if I've missed anybody. Anyway, it's a broad spectrum.
That's a huge audience.
It's huge, yeah.
So you guys really don't have any downtime here.
No, never, never. I wish we did, because I have many things I own that need mending pants that need to be fixed, and I don't have time.
Well, see, and your shop really is a unique find, because people who are looking for a very specialized identity, especially for our audience, which is all filmmakers, they're looking for ways to give their film a very unique identity, and that's why I like McGrew Studios, and that's why you really need to come take a look at what you guys have to offer, because if you want to make your film look the best it can look and have that identity, come talk to these guys. They really know what they're doing.
I want to say something about this.
Please do.
What we love, and I know that Raven's really a fond historian, it's always really interesting when we're working with a client to talk about the historical or socio-cultural research. How is your project informed? Where are you? What milieu? What are the political and social events happening that inform the film, or what your characters might be dragging out of their own wardrobe that day to be wearing in the scene or scenes that you're shooting? These are crucial things that you can't overlook, and a lot of people doing films just on a shoestring budget, they're so excited to get their project, actually realize that they are going places, maybe thrift stores, maybe their own closets, to find items that may or may not be exactly the right thing that will personify the character in question. These could be really sensitive issues, as we know lately with the U.S. Marine Corps. Anything that involves military, you put a costume on somebody and it's the wrong rank, it's the wrong insignia. This is death by insensitivity. And so how I know about this is from early childhood. So my father's a retired pilot, Air Force and then Civil Service, Forest Service. And so as kids, anytime we're sitting around watching films and anything involving aviation, he's screaming literally at the movies because he's saying, they got this wrong and this plane couldn't possibly have been there or done that. And we're saying, Dad, shut up. Let's just enjoy the movie. But when people are experts in their field and they know what works or they know what would be right, if it's anything from aviation to hacking to particular costumes worn by particular characters or types of people in a social setting, and you get it wrong, it stands out horribly. But when it's right, people love it. It's seamless. It makes everything feel good about the film. As good as the acting is, as good as the script is, if you get the technical details right, this is great. We have lots and lots of costume books. We're really good at researching, and we love saying that if you know the rules and then you can break them, that's where you start having a lot of fun. But you really have to think about it. It's kind of like what a dramaturg does for the theater. You kind of have to know what you're doing and then decide, are we going to tweak this? Are we going to make this a unique look out of time and place that doesn't exactly fit? And what are the reasons for putting the wrong thing in or an anachronistic thing in? So anyway, there's your theory and criticism for the day.
Excellent. Now, before we run out of time, tell us real quick, how can people find you?
Well, we're easy to find. We are in between Pioneer Park and the Gateway Shopping Center on Pierpont Avenue. Pierpont is 240 South, and we're between 300 West and 400 West. We have the big red storefront, and you look through and all the masks and cool costumes are on display, and the number is 333, which is actually a magical number. You can't forget that. And we're open most days. Right now we are supposed to be closed on Sunday and Monday, but we're on a film production schedule, so we're quite busy. We're here all the time.
Filmed in Utah will be back right after these messages. One of the things that our family really loves to do is pick up a book at night and read. What it does is it helps us get all excited for bedtime because we know we'll have much more vivid dreams and that when we wake up, our minds will be full of creativity. Unfortunately, there's children who can't read, and for those, we do have help out there available for you. Information on childhood literacy can be found at rif.org.
I've always thought it'd be cool to be featured on, like with the Orchard Temple Square, like the Motab. Just something where we're televised so that the world could see that Brass Band is alive, you know? and see that we really do exist still and we love it.
Hi, my name is Walter. I am 49 years old. I consider myself a scholar adventurer. I am a published author. I live half between Africa and Europe. I am married. I am seeking a long-term mistress or a full second wife.
The 9/11 Memorial will honor my partner and the officers who responded that morning.
It's for my brother.
And my 343 brothers who didn't make it.
It's about hope for the future.
So we always remember September 11th.
For my husband who never came home.
And the first responders who saved my life.
This shows the world that we can rebuild.
That we are united.
And that we are strong.
Because the best of humanity can overcome the worst hate.
It's for all the heroes like my dad.
This year, the National September 11th Memorial opens in New York City. Join us to honor, remember, and reunite. To learn more or to reserve your visit, go to 911memorial.org.
So I'm here at McGrew Studios here in Salt Lake Studio. I got Raven here with me, and we're going to talk about, now this is something I talked about actually a few weeks ago here on the award show. We have art directors and production designers. They are the most underappreciated but most important position on a crew to make your film have a unique look and style. And if you don't have a unique look and style, you're going to look like every other cookie cutter piece of garbage that comes out in the independent film scene, and people forget about your film just as quickly as they saw it. So, Raven, talk to me about what process you go through when you've just got a script to give it that visual identity.
Well, if I may take one step back and say that I've always been a very strange film watcher, because I watch films very completely. I always have. I mean, everything from the editing to I'm listening to the soundtrack. Well, you're not supposed to, but I am listening to the soundtrack. And as an artist myself, I've always been very much an observer, heavy observer. So when I go through it, when a script lands in front of me, I am reading it, but I'm reading it for the atmosphere. I'm reading it for things that are referenced in the dialogue that may not have occurred to anyone. The example I like to give is this. The family sits down at the table, and the mother opens a can of soup and heats the soup up on the stove, and then they all eat the soup, and I go, no, that's not one can of soup. It's like a lot of, it's just not considered. One of my favorite ones, someone showed me a period film that was supposed to take place in the 1970s, and the kid was listening to his iPod. And I went, Okay.
iPods in the 70s.
Yes.
That's great consistency in there in the screenwriting.
It's beautiful. So really what I do is I go through and break down every environment, I'm thinking about the period that the piece is set in, thinking about all of the details that are going to make that setting come to life. I'm thinking about, for example, well, of course, costuming, whatever. But really, it's looking for those details and breaking down and really seeing what's going to build this world. Because if you think about a script in terms, you're creating an illusion. Now, sometimes aspects of that illusion already exist in places, but even when that's the case, especially, for example, some locations here in Utah, which are used heavily, they may be great looking pieces, but every film that shoots there, every project that's done there, has to look different or people are going to recognize that location. And I think, and the reason that's important is that if you're consistently recognizing a location in a film, it becomes distracting from the film. The truth is, there should be nothing in your... There's an interesting thing they talk about is that, it's a very common thing in America that we tend to point out the things that people do wrong.
Yes.
More than we point out the things that people do right.
Yes.
And one of my, I admit it, I'm a big fan of Peter Jackson because, especially in the context of Lord of the Rings, the production design is, I don't even have words. It's beyond the pale. And they made a point of putting in details that you might never even see in the film, but it's about creating the believability of that environment and that space entirely. So, and here's what the funny part. You won't notice if everything's right, but you will notice if one thing's wrong.
Filmed in Utah is made possible by companies like...
Looking for these? You drive buzzed. It could be one very expensive ride.
First, you gotta make bail. Then pay me to get your car back.
Your insurance premiums will go through the roof.
And my legal fees just keep adding up. All told, it could end up costing you $10,000.
Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
I've been in circumstances in my life when I haven't had access to music, and that's been very difficult. But I remember everything I've heard, so I can play it back.
I'd like to take just a moment to say thank you to all those that support Filmed in Utah. It's through your efforts as filmmakers or support services that help keep this show going. I'd really like to thank all those that have been able to help Filmed in Utah financially. Without your support, we wouldn't even be able to get to the locations where these filmmakers are filming at. So once again, thank you so much for your support in Filmed in Utah. If you would like information on becoming a sponsor, you can find that at filmedinutah.com. All right, we got Daynard Gerald here, and you're filming Diabalow's Crow.
Yep.
And it's a beautiful post-apocalyptic world in Midvale?
Yes, of all places. I had no idea.
I mean, if you come down to Midvale, it looks a lot like Sugar House. It's really pretty. You know, you got some historic area, and then someone apparently dropped an A-bomb back in here in this neighborhood.
Right in between that building and this one, someone dropped an A-bomb, and thus we have our set.
Well, see, and that's a practical location, and I think they got it for nothing.
The price was right.
The price was right. And only in Utah. Now, tell me about your character in Diabalow's Crow.
Okay, I play the character of Jack, and you know, he's a soldier who's kind of the last one left on his side of the fight, and as far as he's concerned, the last one left on Earth. I mean, like 8 weeks has passed, nothing's happened. He shot 1 or 2 guys, and he's kind of wondering what's going on, and he suddenly, after all this time of this utter silence, he hears the sound of a woman humming, and so he goes and investigates, and he thinks, this is it. It's me and you. And she's the enemy. So he's got to figure out what to do.
Yeah, it sounds like a major clash in cultures. You're going to have a major clash in belief systems, all sorts of things. How are you preparing for a role like this?
I grew up in the South.
That helps.
Preparation done.
Like, let's see here. A white woman and a black guy. No, they go together like peanut butter and jelly, right?
Yeah.
Never a problem, never a problem, right?
Yeah, never.
Never. No one ever has a little raised eyebrow at that.
Yeah, not at all. So, I mean, I've seen this sort of thing before, and so it didn't take a whole lot of preparation, but having a gun in my hand while I'm facing a white woman, I'm not accustomed to. So that's a new one.
So talking about differences from LA and Salt Lake, not packing heat everywhere you go.
Right.
That's kind of one of the benefits. How many of these types of shoots do you normally see in a year?
What do you mean, these types?
Any type of shoots where we have a professional video crew coming out on a location, because you work as a producer for a pretty large company, with Unicity, or how do you say it?
It's pronounced Unicity, yeah.
Unicity, okay.
Yeah, I produce for them, and I've just started doing that over the last 8 months, and before that I was acting full time. So as far as being on set with a large crew or even a small crew like this, or a professional crew, which is what really matters.
That's all that matters.
That's been. That was pretty much a regular thing for me. It's nothing new.
So you would say that we probably have some pretty well experienced professional crews here in Utah?
Oh, the best. Absolutely. Yeah. I've worked in several markets. I've worked in California. I've worked in the Dallas market in Texas and Austin. I've also worked in Florida and several markets down there. And all of this as an actor for the last 20 years or so. And the crews here are on par with anything or better than anything anybody else can do.
I love it. So if you're out there in LA or New York and you're thinking, hey, I need to come to Utah because they have beautiful locations, well, guess what? We have everything else. We have the actors, we have the crew, we have really everything that you need to film in the state.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
Well, Tanya and I have been working on a lot of projects over the years, and so we've known each other for a while.
Yeah.
Going way back to Raising Cain.
Yay.
And now we're on the set of Diabalow's Crow, which you wrote and you are starring in. Can you give me a quick breakdown of the show in general and your character?
I can indeed. Diabalow's Crow is a post-apocalyptic film. It takes place 35 days after the end of the Civil War that just about wiped out most of humanity in this area. The Civil War is actually racially driven, black versus white, and so kind of topical. You know,
yeah,
a lot of the differences and stuff like that. And the message of the whole thing is our hero Jack. He's a soldier. He's a trained killer and stuff. And what is it that can get to him? And it's that need for humanity. We need each other as people. And the two characters are the most opposite you can get within one culture: black, white, old, young, male, female, country, city. I mean, just the most opposite. And yet they can still form a connection and realize that they do have a need for each other. That's outside of any kind of a gender thing or a racial thing or buddy thing or anything like that. It's just that as people, we're not meant to be alone.
So what is really motivating your character? When you're breaking down your character, what attributes are you trying to pull out of yourself so that you could really magnify this role?
Honestly, it's the value of the nurturer. It was something different. I'm a soldier from the opposing army. I'm an engineer who's now pinned and dying, and the part of me that's able to affect the other character is the fact that I'm a nurturer. I'm a human person that's kind of got a little bit of that mothering in there, and there's a certain value to that. within humanity.
Now, I don't know if you guys can see this in here, but I want you to see the makeup that's happening here. Poor Tanya's got someone to just beat the snot out of her right up here, and she's all dried out on her lips.
Yeah, yeah. We have a really awesome set of people here tonight.
And keeping in mind, this is a smaller set of crew members, but it's also very efficient. Everyone has specific jobs. We're not in a unionized state, so you can have people who are here working on non-union projects, and you can get these projects done much more affordably. Could you have done this film in LA or New York on your guys' budget?
No.
And why is that?
Because here I can actually get locations for little to no money. I can get crew who are willing to come out and donate time or to do it for a reduced price because they want to be working. We can get food and just all of the subsidiary industries. They haven't gotten used to the idea. Maybe I shouldn't be saying this on film so they don't realize this. They haven't got used to the idea yet that they can make a lot of money off of this, and so they're happy to help with creating movies and stuff, and so it makes it a lot easier to get things done.
Yeah, so the novelty of still making a movie is still fresh in the minds of business owners here, and so that's really one of the key things that if you film in Utah, you can really use as a resource, is that people still think that making movies in Utah is really new. And unlike LA and New York, where it's kind of old hat. I mean,
well, and I'm from LA, and I can tell you, it's a lot harder to get this done. That's why I'm here, actually, and that's why I've been here the last 3 years, is because I can do more stuff here.
So if you want to start making your movie and have more resources, lower costs, and better experienced crew, and great cast, really, you guys should be filming in Utah.
Absolutely.
Filmed in Utah will be back right after these messages.
Funny story, actually. My boyfriend at the time and we got lost in a bad part of LA off of the 105, and he told me we needed to pull over and fill the tank with gas. So we exited the freeway and he pulled over onto a side street, got out of the car and hopped into a car that was there waiting for him, and then he just took off.
One of the things that our family really loves to do is pick up a book at night and read. What it does is it helps us get all excited for bedtime because we know we'll have much more vivid dreams, and that when we wake up, our minds will be full of creativity. Unfortunately, there's children who can't read, and for those, we do have help out there available for you. Information on childhood literacy can be found at riff.org. Well, that does it for me on this episode of Filmed in Utah. Be sure to join me next week as we explore more of the fantastic film industry here in the Beehive State. I'm Warren Workman. Keep filming, Utah. I'd like to take just a moment to say thank you to all those that support Filmed in Utah. It's through your efforts as filmmakers or support services that help keep this show going. I'd really like to thank all those that have been able to help Filmed in Utah financially. Without your support, we wouldn't even be able to get to the locations where these filmmakers are filming at. So once again, thank you so much for your support in Filmed in Utah. If you would like information on becoming a sponsor, you can find that at filmedinutah.com.